done way too much, for this city. So I do think it's like that dude.
Joel Embiid is going off on Paul George after finding out he leaked private 76ers team conversations to the world. And honestly, Joel has every right to. Those leaks are exposing Binnesines, cracks like never before. I've got all the details. Let's get into it. The betrayal that shook the Philadelphia 76ers 22 for 225 season began with championship aspirations, a loaded roster featuring Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey, and the kind of optimism that only comes with adding a former All-Star tone, already talented core. But by November, those dreams had turned into a nightmare that would ultimately expose deepest fractures within one of NBA's most scrutinized franchises. The Philadelphia 76ers stumbled out of Thegat with a disastrous 211 start, a record that immediately put the franchise's championship window in jeopardy. The early struggles weren't just about wins and losses. They were symptomatic of deeper issues that had been brewing beneath the surface. Joel Embiid, the 2023 NBA MVP and the franchise's cornerstone, was dealing with his habitual tardiness to team events, including meetings, creating friction within a locker room that desperately needed unity. The breaking point came when veteran guard Kyle Lowry requested a players-only meeting in November 2024. These meetings are sacred in professional sports, private sanctuaries where players can speak candidly about issues that might be too for public consumption. They're meant to be safe spaces where accountability can flourish without fear of external judgment or media scrutiny. What happened in that Philadelphia meeting room was supposed to stay there, bound by the unwritten code that governs professional locker rooms across During this closed-door session, something unprecedented occurred that would forever change the dynamic between Embiid and his teammates. Maxey, despite being just 24 years old and significantly younger than the former MVP, stepped up to confront Embiid about his chronic tardiness. This wasn't a malicious attack or a power play. It was a teammate challenging another teammate to be better, to lead by example, and to understand how his actions were affecting the entire team's culture and role. But for Maxey, to say that to him is not as big of an issue like Joel. Embiid acknowledged you've been late, you've been tardy, and you've got cold on it. That's not the big issue. The big issue is that somebody has such little concern for how it would make sure. Embiid looked at the superstar of the Philadelphia 76ers was put in front street. The confrontation itself was brief. According to Embiid, the entire exchange lasted approximately 30 seconds. It wasn't the heated, explosive argument that the media would later make it seem. It was a young leader challenging an established superstar to be better delivered with the kind of respect and directness that championship teams require. Maxey, who had emerged as a vocal leader despite his age, was simply asking his teammate to set the standard that everyone else was expected to. But what happened next would shatter the foundation of trust that professional teams depend upon to function effectively. The details of the meeting were leaked to the media the following day, November 18, 2024, with ESPN reporting the specifics of Max's confrontation with Embiid. This wasn't a general report about team dysfunction or vague references to locker room. This was detailed specific information about a private conversation that was meant to remain confidential. The leak sent shockwaves through the organization and beyond. Embiid's immediate reaction was one of fury and betrayal, describing the as a real piece of Apris's interaction. Shortly after the incident became public, this wasn't just anger about being called out for tardiness. This was the rage of someone who felt fundamentally betrayed by people he was supposed to trust. The violation wasn't just about the content of what was leaked. It was about the principle of trust that governs professional relationships. Stephen A. Smith, who has covered NBA locker rooms for nearly 3 decades, emphasized that this kind of breaker presents a line that simply cannot be. The sanctity of the locker room isn't just about keeping secrets. It's about maintaining the kind of environment where difficult conversations can happen, where accountability can flourish, and where teams can address problems become public spectacles. What made this betrayal particular to Dyston was the timing and context. The 76ers were already struggling with a 2-1-1 record, dealing with injuries to key players and trying to integrate Paul George into their system. The team needed unity and trust more than ever, but instead they got a public airing off their private grievances that would follow them throughout the season. Paul George, on his podcast with Paul George, expressed his own frustration over the leak, noting that the meeting wasn't confrontational enough to warrant public exposure. His perspective, as a veteran who had joined Ed's team with championship expectations, provide additional context to just how damaging this breach of trust had become. This wasn't just affecting Embiid, it was poisoning the entire team dynamic at a time when they could least afford it. The leak also came with broader implications for how the public received Embiid's leadership. The media portrayal exaggerated the issue, blowing it out of proportion due to his high-profile status. What should have been an internal matter between teammates became fodder for national debate about MBE's professionalism and leadership qualities. The leak not only violated the trust of the locker room, but also painted MBE as an unprofessional leader, which he believed had unfairly amplified the narrative around his leadership style. This wasn't just about being late to meetings anymore. I thought become a symbol of everything that critics had long said about Embiid's commitment and leadership abilities. As the story continued to evolve throughout season, it became clear that this wasn't just a one-time incident that would blow over. The betrayal had created a fundamental shift in how Embiid viewed his relationships within the organization, setting the stage for decisions that would impact not just their remainder of the 2024-25 season, but potentially the entire future of the Philadelphia 76ers franchise. The fallout and Embiid's decision. In a July 2025 ESPN profile by Dune Akintoye, Embiid revealed that he knows the identity of the person who leaked the meeting details. A revelation that added her layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. This wasn't just about unknown, but this was about Embiid having to look at specific individuals within the organization, knowing that one of them had violated his trust in such a fundamental way. The psychological toll of carrying that knowledge of interacting with teammates and knowing that someone among them had betrayed him cannot be understated. Trust for him is like a huge not a concern. Perhaps a fixation is maybe a better way. Toned, one of the incidents of last season was the leak in a closed-door meeting that Thedham had, and he brought it up with me, and it's still bothering him very clearly. Despite knowing who was responsible, MBE chose not to disclose their name publicly, stating, "The past is the past." This decision speaks to a certain maturity and professionalism, but it also highlights the ongoing tension that such knowledge creates. By keeping the identity private, Embiid avoided creating additional public drama, but he also ensured that the uncertainty and suspicion would continue to permeate the locker room atmosphere. The most significant and potentially devastating consequence of this betrayal came in the form of MBE's decision regarding future team interactions. He emphasized that the breach of trust was a significant issue, saying, "It's hard being around people that do those sorts of stuff. That goes back to the trust thing. Once you cross that, you can't expect me to be part of a team meeting gagging. That's just not going to happen." This wasn't just an emotional reaction spoken in the heat of the moment. This was a calculated, deliberate decision by the franchise's most important player to fundamentally change how he engages with team-building process. Embiid reflects a broader issue of trust within the team, viewing the leak as a betrayal that undermines team cohesion, particularly since the meeting was meant to address internal challenge privilege. The implications of this decision extend far beyond just missing a few meetings. His refusal to participate in future meetings is a significant statement, as it could limit this engagement in critical team-building moments, especially for a 76er squad already grappling with chemistry issue after a disappointing season. These closed-door sessions are where teams address their most pressing issues, where accountability is established, and where the kind of honest communication assists for championship-level success takes place. Embiid's comments suggest that the leaker might still be part of 76ers organization, as he crypticalinated, "There's a chance they're still around." This revelation creates an ongoing source of tension and paranoia within the organization. If the person responsible for the leak is still employed by the team, whether as a player, coach, or staff member, it means that every subsequent meeting, every private conversation, and every attempt at team building occurs under the shadow of potential betrayal. The psychological effect of this situation on Embiid personally cannot be overlooked. Akintoye's profile revealed that Embiid had been dealing with significant frustration throughout the season and had even sought therapy to address the mental and emotional strains. The leak added another layer to what was already a challenging season, both physically and emotionally.